First up, we're going to take a look at some of the team accomplishments from this past season. These young men were able to win 15 dual meets this past season, which is a new program record for wins in a season. They also set a new record for most team points scored in a season with 721. They also broke the record for most team points in a dual meet in a victory against Wilmington on January 11th. They were able to shut out Wilmington 57-0. And individually, the young men accounted for 322 individual match wins, which is the most in program history, as well as winning the Star City Classic for a second consecutive year. Now for the individuals, we're going to start off with our freshman class. First up, Joey Buckland. This young man finished the season 14-5. He was 1-0 in the OAC with 4 pins, 3 tech falls. He had an 8th place finish at the Star City Open, a 7th place finish at the Ohio Northern Invite, and was unbeaten at the Kent State Tuskegee Duels. This young man was kind of thrust into the starting lineup after an early season injury to then starter Jackson Laxo, and he performed extremely well. He actually was one of the bright spots for us this season up until he injured a knee, which forced an early conclusion to a otherwise fantastic freshman season. We expect big things out of this young man in the future. Next up is freshman Chris Hager. Chris recorded 6 wins this past season. 4 of those were by fall, the biggest of which came in a dual meet against Case Western Reserve in his hometown of Cleveland, where his pin helped us to secure the dual meet win, where he had a lot of hometown fans and family members there cheering him on. Chris was also my go-to guy in helping with overnight visits for future Cardinals. He helped to sell Otterbein to a number of individuals that plan on joining us next year. Unfortunately, due to the current COVID situation, Chris has decided to transfer back home for this coming school year, and he will definitely be missed. Next up is freshman Cole Jackson. Cole recorded 10 victories this past season. He finished 10-6. He was 1-1 in the OAC. He recorded 4 falls during the course of the season. He battled an early season knee injury, and by the time he was able to kind of round back into shape, he was able to notch a big win for us in a dual meet against Rochester, and also did probably his best wrestling in his last outing of the season, as he finished 4th place at the Whizzer Open up in Detroit, Michigan. Cole has a really bright future, and we're looking forward to seeing how he develops as he moves forward. Next up is freshman Jacob Williams. Jacob won 19 matches this past season. He was 2-5 in the OAC. The thing that's remarkable about those 19 wins, he really was up a weight class this year. He went up to 149 to help the team out, and in doing so, notched 19 wins, 9 of which were by fall, 2 by tech fall, so he had 11 bonus point wins. He also was the recipient of the Pete George Sportsmanship Award at the Wheaton Invitational, which I'm extremely proud of him for. He was unbeaten at the Kent State Tuskegee Duels, which was definitely his best wrestling of the year, as he was able to come back and pin a wrestler that had previously pinned him in a dual meet from Rochester. This young man, as soon as he grows in strength into the weight class, is going to be a force to be reckoned with in the future. Next up is freshman Ryan Witten. It's not always easy to make that transition from high school into college wrestling. This young man made it look easy this past season, as he accounted for 39 wins. He finished 39-7 on the season. He was 6-1 in the OAC, which garnered him second team conference honors. He had 10 falls and 6 tech falls, so 16 bonus point wins. He was 4th at the extremely tough opening Ithaca Invitational. He was 1st at Ohio Northern, beating a Division II national qualifier in the finals. He was 1st at the Star City Open, beating another Division II national qualifier in the finals. He was 1st at regionals and was an NCAA qualifier the second NCAA qualifier in program history. He ended up finishing as a second-team All-American since we weren't able to compete at the national tournament due to the COVID situation. He was voted a second-team All-American by the Coaches Association. He was also an academic All-American, which I'm extremely proud of because this young man was balancing ROTC duties on top of classroom duties, on top of wrestling, and he was succeeding at all of them. His 39 wins is a new record for most wins in a season, and his 6 tech falls tied a record for tech falls in a season, and this young man is only going to get better. He's going to be exciting to watch the next 3 years. Now for our sophomores. First up is Joey Bradbury. Joey had some knee damage done last season and had to have surgery at the completion of the season and did the rehab on that during the offseason, made the jump from 157 up to 174, an extremely strong 174. Very first day of practice this season, he re-injured that exact same knee and opted to just have the meniscus taken out, and was able to come back quicker, but still was out the first part of the season. Still, even coming off that injury, he finished 22-8 this past season. He was 4-1 in the OAC. He accounted for 13 pins and 1 tech fall. He was 7th at the Wheaton Invitational. He has so far been a 2-time Wheaton Invitational placer, which is no easy task. He's on pace to possibly be our first 4-time Wheaton Invitational placer. He was 1st at the Whizzer Open, where I think he did his best wrestling of the season, and he was 5th at the Ohio Northern Invite, which was one of his first tournaments back in action after his injury. We expect Joey to step up and become a leader on this team over the course of the next couple years, as well as really anchor down our upper weights. Next up is my man, sophomore Chase Nelson. Chase was joining us after spending his freshman year at Otterbein playing football, so he'd been away from the wrestling mat for well over a year. Jumped back into the fold and started the majority of the season for us and accounted for 7 victories, the biggest of which was in a dual meet against Wilmington, which helped us to notch a shutout victory against Wilmington on their home floor. I don't think I saw the team as excited all year long as they were during that match where Chase was able to come from behind and secure that victory. Now that he's kind of shaking the rust off, I'm looking forward to seeing how he develops over the course of the next couple seasons. Next up is sophomore Jared Setliff. Jared had an awesome freshman year last season, so we had big expectations for him this season, and he didn't disappoint early on in the season. He ended up finishing the season 19-7. He was 3-0 in OAC competition. He was second on the team in falls with 15. He was 4th at the Ithaca Invitational to open up the season, and then he was dominant in a first-place finish at the Star City Open a couple weeks later. Unfortunately, he dealt with some kind of scary medical issues during the second half of the season, which really kind of derailed his season. Now that he's healthy and back to working out, we expect him to not only be a force in our upper weights for the next 2 years, but to be a team leader as well. Now on to our junior class. First up is Santino DeSabato. Tino accounted for 13 wins this past season, by far the biggest of which was in a dual meet against Ohio Northern, where he was able to knock off an extremely tough regional placer, which helped us to kind of get on a roll and beat Ohio Northern at home, which was probably one of our biggest dual meet wins of the season against a very good Polar Bear squad. He was 3-2 in the OAC with 2 falls and was 7th place at the Star City Open. He has one more year to achieve his goals, and we're expecting a big senior season out of Santino next year. My fellow Star Wars nerd, Junior Michael Dusney. Michael unfortunately suffered an early season shoulder injury, which enabled him to only get a few matches under his belt this past season. He had one win against Ohio Northern. Even though he was not able to compete, he was still at practices, still cheering his teammates on. Just an overall great young man who really kind of epitomizes the heart and soul of Cardinal grit and what it means to be a true teammate. And we're hoping that he can be healthy and finish off his senior year strong this coming season. And the last of our junior class is Sam Shalvey. There is not another wrestler in this program that just loves wrestling more than what this young man does. He is an encyclopedia of knowledge in terms of wrestlers that are out there. He is a true student of the sport. Sam accounted for 6 wins this past season with 1 fall. Sam is going to be a young man that is already actively involved in coaching the sport of wrestling, and he is going to go on to great things after his wrestling career is done here at Otterbein, to continue giving back to the sport as a coach. And I'm looking forward to his senior year and then seeing what he's able to accomplish in the sport in the years after.
Grab your friends, find your enemies and make amends, and we'll meet in the middle. Take the pride and set it aside. My hands will build you a shield, and we'll solve the riddle. And we'll remember these times, we'll remember these times. Oh, oh, oh. And we'll remember these times, we'll remember these times. Oh, grab your friends, find your enemies and make amends, and we'll meet in the middle. Take the pride and set it aside. My hands will build you a shield, and we'll solve the riddle. And we'll remember these times, we'll remember these times. Oh, oh, oh. And we'll remember these times, we'll remember these times. Oh, grab your friends, find your enemies and make amends, and we'll meet in the middle. Take the pride and set.
Now on to our seniors, and the first is Donnie Didion. Donnie had his best season of his career this past year with a 17-12 record. Donnie was a 4-year starter for the Cardinals. There were moments where we thought that his starting spot may be in jeopardy, but he always worked and found a way to claw his way into that starting lineup because, being able to compete and being able to represent the Cardinals was extremely important to him. And I never had to question the kid's heart. At times, I did definitely question his common sense. His few moments where he didn't make weight, or sometimes when he spoke without thinking. But at the end of the day, he has grown up a lot over the course of these past 4 years, and really, is one of the cornerstones of helping to establish this program. The highlight for him this past season was his first individual championship at the Star City Open, and he also finished 5th at the Ohio Northern Invitational. And now we're looking forward to bigger and better things in life as Donnie moves forward. Next up is senior Luke Hess. The thing that I really enjoyed most about Luke is just his passion to compete. He just loves the sport of wrestling. He came on board just because he wanted to be able to have 4 more years to compete in the sport that he loved. Luke does things the right way. I never had to worry about him academically or doing things that would put a black eye on the program. Luke had an awesome senior season, finishing with a 16 and an 11 record. He was 2-2 in the OAC. He had 5 falls. I think the most memorable, which is going to be his pin against Mount St. Joseph in the last home dual meet for these seniors. He finished 6th at the Ithaca Invitational, and because of his ability to improve over the course of his career here at Otterbein, we have decided to, moving forward, name the Most Improved Wrestler Award that is handed out each season, the Luke Hess Most Improved Wrestler Award. We really want to, give back to these seniors that came in and helped to establish this program, and I think that that's a fitting honor for Luke. I know he's going to do great things in life. Next up is senior Chris Martinez, and I definitely cannot imagine the last 4 years without Christopher, and I sincerely mean that. He has definitely been the personality of the Otterbein Cardinal Wrestling program the last 4 years. He's had some ups and downs. He's had to overcome some things, but at the end of the day, I'm just extremely proud of how he finished his career in a Cardinal uniform. He was 16-9 this past season. He had 9 falls and 1 tech fall. He was 6th at the Ohio Northern Invitational. He was 7th at the Star City Open. He has really turned around things academically and finished really strong academically this year, as his plans, I believe, are to continue forward with law school, and he is one that I'm really going to look forward to seeing the accomplishments that he makes in the years moving forward. His personality is going to be a hard one to replace in the wrestling room. Next up is senior Joey Tromba, and to say that there's been a young man that's overcome more adversity than this young man, I'm not sure that there's a person out there that's done so. Joey was my first on-campus visit as a college wrestling coach. He showed up to that visit with a big knee brace on after having suffered an ACL tear that cost him his senior season. 2 weeks before he was set to report to Otterbein after going through all his rehab, I will never forget the call I got from his dad, where he had retorn that same ACL. So he had to come in and spend his freshman year rehabbing that injury again. He was able to get on the mat and finally get to do some wrestling, and did so extremely impressively out at the Ithaca Invitational, but then turned around and suffered a shoulder injury that had to result in shoulder surgery. So that was 3 major surgeries over the course of a less than 3.5 year time period. And then one of the moments in my coaching career that I'll never forget, after his junior season started and he was able to do some wrestling, he was struggling with the shoulder that was surgically repaired, and he went to get it checked out over Christmas break, and I got a text message from him that said, "Coach, the shoulder's okay, but they diagnosed me with cancer." And having been a cancer survivor myself, that turned my world upside down. And we all jumped on board with our Joey Strong social media things, and our wristbands, which I still have mine on to this very day. I'm not going to take it off until all of his treatments are completely done and he has this behind him, even though he's doing extremely well now. But this young man dealt with the cancer like the true warrior that he is, and balanced continually moving forward in an extremely difficult engineering program here at Otterbein. And came back and helped as a student coach this year. And although the wrestling part didn't turn out the way he wanted to for him, the mark that he's left on this program, the mark that he's left on me personally, is never going to be forgotten. And he will be one of the young men that I will always turn to when I talk to future wrestlers about what it really is to truly overcome adversity and use the life lessons that wrestling teaches you to help you do so. Next up is senior Willie Plaisir. I cannot imagine these past 4 years without this young man's smile in the wrestling room on a daily basis. We really truly missed him his junior year when he was out for the year rehabbing from shoulder surgery. It was just really great to have him back in the room this year for his senior season. He finished the season 27-14. He was 3-4 in the OAC in an extremely difficult weight class. He had 15 falls and 2 tech falls, so 17 total bonus point victories. The highlight was his first place win at the Star City Open. He was 8th at the extremely tough Wheaton Invitational, and he was 8th at regionals, so he was a regional placer during his senior season. All doing so while coming off a pretty tough shoulder surgery. What he brought into the room in terms of just being fun to watch as a wrestler, being even more fun to be around as an individual. He was fun to watch on the wrestling mat because he was not afraid to ever pull off the big moves, even though sometimes that wasn't the best route to take. He still enjoyed doing it and going for broke, and it worked more times than it didn't. So just everything about him is going to be missed in this program, and I'm just extremely glad that he was one of the individuals that helped us kickstart things and bring the program back. And he's going to go on to do some great things in the future. He's just a fantastic young man. Next up is senior Jackson Laxo. And, this is a story that I've told, numerous times, but when I sat down to start writing down kids that I wanted to recruit when we were resurrecting the program, the very first name that I put down was Jackson Laxo. I remembered him as a high school wrestler when I was still a high school coach. In one match in particular, up at the Maumee Bay Classic, and as match for 5th, he had an extremely tough wrestler from our local area that got a little chippy with Jackson, and Jackson got a little chippy back and ended up beating the young man, and that just stood out in my mind. And that was the kind of young man that I wanted to not only help kickstart the program, but being a lightweight, help to kickstart our dual meets. And he didn't disappoint. For a young man that had to go through 2, not just 1, but 2 surgically repaired shoulders during the course of his career here at Otterbein, he still had just an absolutely awesome career. Wins and losses this past year were not as good as previous years because of dealing with some injuries, but he did finish with 15 wins. He was 3-1 in the OAC. He did record 1 fall and was first at the Star City Open, which was a repeat championship for him from last season. During the 4 years that he was in a Cardinal singlet, he was a regional placer and was just seconds away from being an NCAA qualifier his junior year. Unfortunately, I'm not so sure that he didn't have COVID in the weeks leading up to the regionals this past year, because he was extremely sick and then had to go into regionals, just not ready physically because of the sickness, and his career didn't end the way that I know he wanted it to. But man, this kid just kept on showing up and kept on battling through adversity, and I'm just extremely proud of him. And I know that because of his willingness to just continue to battle, he's going to go on to great things in life. Next up is senior Corbin Bunsold, who, along with Jackson Laxo and Drew Casper, was a 2-year team captain for the Cardinals. Corbin was another one that we lost for a full season. The weeks leading up to the start of the season his sophomore year, he had a devastating leg injury, which caused him to miss his entire sophomore season. He still turned around and was regional placer his junior year, and then came back this year and finished with a 34-8 record. He was 6-1 in the OAC, which also garnered him second-team OAC honors. He had 13 falls and 2 tech falls. He was 5th at the Ithaca Invitational in an extremely tough weight class. He was 1st at the Star City Open for the second straight year. He was 4th at the Wheaton Invitational, which made him a Wheaton placer in all 3 seasons that he wrestled there, which is an extremely tough feat. He was 4th at regionals, which was kind of a heartbreaker. He lost to a wrestler that he had previously beaten a few weeks before in the match to qualify for NCAAs this year. But, that does not take away to everything that he was able to accomplish, as a wrestler during his time here at Otterbein. But even more importantly to me, he is our first 3-time academic All-American. He would have most definitely been a 4-time All-American had he competed his sophomore year. He was also academic All-OAC, and he was the winner of the very prestigious Clyde Lamb Award, which is given out to 1 female and 1 male athlete at each of the 10 OAC schools this year. Every year. So he was the male recipient of that award for Otterbein University this season as their top student athlete. So that is just remarkable. And then even more so, just the way that he took over leadership and ownership of this team just made me extremely proud. In honor of his leadership and what he was able to do, I'm going to name our new leadership award that we're going to hand out at the end of each season, the Corbin Bunsold Leadership Award. He is going to come back and be our grad assistant for the next 2 years, so he is not done giving back to the program that he helped establish. Last and certainly not least is senior Drew Casper. As everyone knows, Drew wrestled for me in high school. We were fortunate enough to win a state title together. And even more fortunate for me, he decided to follow me to Otterbein when I made the move. And, it was kind of our dream to be the first coach-wrestler duo to win a state high school title together as coach and wrestler, and then to win an NCAA title together as coach and wrestler. Unfortunately, the COVID situation derailed those plans, but it does not take away from an absolutely fantastic career that this young man had in an Otterbein University wrestling singlet. He has set the standard for what every wrestler that walks through the wrestling room doors should strive to achieve moving forward. Drew accounted for a 30-0 record this past season, which gave him a total of 108 career wins and an Otterbein singlet, which is obviously a program record. He was 6-0 in the OAC, which made him unbeaten in OAC dual meets over the course of his 4 years, which everyone knows how tough the OAC is in wrestling. So to go 4 years without losing a dual meet in this conference is a great achievement. He had 11 falls and 4 tech falls. He was 1st at the Ithaca Invitational. He was 1st at the Wheaton Invitational, making him a 2-time Wheaton Invitational champion, which is our toughest regular season tournament and one of the toughest Division III tournaments in the country. He was 1st at the regional, making him our first 2-time regional champion. And he was the first 2-time Otterbein University Male Athlete of the Year. He was 5th in the NCAAs his junior year, making him our first All-American. And, this year, since he finished the season ranked number 1 in the nation, The coaches voted him a first-team All-American since we weren't able to, win the title on the wrestling mat. Drew did go into the NCAA tournament as the number one seed and obviously the odds-on favorite to win that title. But we talk all the time about life lessons and what kind of life lessons the sport of wrestling teaches us. And even though this was an extremely tough lesson, it's one that we're all going to learn from, and he's going to move on to bigger and better and greater things in life because of it. He is not going to be defined by whether or not he won that title. He's going to be defined by all the other great things that he was able to accomplish during his time on campus at Otterbein, and he's definitely going to be missed, both by me personally because of our long time relationship, and by everyone who was able to compete with him because he just did it the right way. And we appreciate everything that Drew did for the program, and we appreciate everything that all of these seniors have done for this program. I couldn't have asked for a better group to resurrect this team with, and I'm just looking forward to seeing what they're all able to go on and accomplish in life. Next up is our 4 special team awards that we'll hand out. In honor of this senior class, I have decided to rename some of the awards. A few of them I spoke of earlier. Our MVW, or Most Valuable Wrestler Award, will move forward as the Drew Casper Most Valuable Wrestler Award. Our Leadership Award will be called the Corbin Bunsold Leadership Award. Our Cardinal Grit Award already has 2 individuals attached to that, Joey Tromba and Jake Vaughn. That will continue as the Joey Tromba, Jake Vaughn Cardinal Grit Award. And then our Most Improved Award will be renamed the Luke Hess Most Improved Award. I really wanted to, give back to this senior class, as they helped to usher in the resurrection of the Cardinal Wrestling program. And I just think it's important, that they be remembered for some of the things that they helped to accomplish. Just a real quick recap of some of the other individual awards that were earned this past season. Second Team Ohio Athletic Conference Awards went to Drew Casper, Corbin Bunsold, and Ryan Witten. Drew's was on a technicality. The league says that you have to give first team honors to anybody that wrestles in all of the dual meets. And Drew did miss one of the dual meets this past season. So he was a first team selection his first 3 years as a Cardinal, and a second team selection this year, even though he still never lost any conference matches. Academic All-Americans this year, Corbin Bunsold became a 3-time Academic All-American, and Ryan Witten won his first Academic All-American award. Corbin Bunsold was also named an Academic All-OAC recipient. Jacob Williams was the Pete George Sportsmanship Award winner at the Wheaton Invitational. Regional champions went to Drew Casper and Ryan Witten. Regional placers were Corbin Bunsold and Willie Plaisir. Our NCAA qualifiers were the duo of Drew Casper and Ryan Witten. They also both were named All-Americans, as Drew received first-team All-American honors and Ryan received second-team All-American honors. New program records go to Ryan Witten for most wins in a season with 39, Drew Casper for most wins in a career with 108, Drew Casper for most takedowns in a career with 236, Corbin Bunsold for most reversals in a career with 43, Drew Casper for most combined near-fall points in a career with 378, most pins in a career go to Corbin Bunsold with 52, and Ryan Witten tied Drew Casper for most tech falls in a season with 6. Drew also established the record for most tech falls in a career with 17. So those were all some great individual awards. Now for our Big 4 individual awards. I'd like to congratulate the 2019-2020 winners of the Luke Hess Most Improved Award. Sophomore Joey Bradbury and freshman Joey Buckland are co-recipients. Our two Joeys. Joey Bradbury had to rebound from a second knee surgery since the conclusion of last season to come back and just put together a spectacular second half of the season after his recovery. He recorded 22 wins, was dominant in a first place win at the Whizzer Open. It just continually got better as the season progressed. We just need to make sure we keep him healthy next year because I definitely think he's going to be a leader for us, both on the mats and in the practice room. And freshman Joey Buckland kind of did it in reverse. He was jumped into the starting lineup due to injury early in the season and just wrestled lights out all season for us up until he damaged a knee at practice. The required surgery that kept him out for the remainder of the season. But he was able to reel off 14 wins during his time in the starting lineup and really helped to solidify himself as a force to be reckoned with, especially after his performance at the Kent State Tuskegee Duels, where he went unbeaten against pretty tough competition. Both of these young men are going to be key pieces for the Cardinals as we move forward. So congratulations for those two young men for being named our most improved wrestlers for this past season. I'd like to congratulate the 2019-2020 recipients of the Joey Tromba, Jake Vaughn Cardinal Grit Award. Again, there are co-recipients this year. This year's award winners are Jackson Laxo and Willie Plaisir. Coach Vaughn and I both kind of came to a unanimous decision when we talked about who we thought was deserving of this award. This award is very special because it epitomizes, what it takes to be able to overcome adversity and to continue to show up every day, even when it may not be, something that you want to do. And these two young men definitely overcame, a lot of adversity during the course of their careers here at Otterbein. Both of them have had major reconstructive surgery on their shoulders. Jackson has had two of those. They both missed, time on the wrestling mat, but they continued to show up, and they continued to be great teammates, and they continued to be leaders, and they continued to go out and compete, even when the odds were somewhat stacked against them at times. So I can't think of two more deserving young men to receive this award this year, and for everything that it stands for. Congratulations to Jackson and Willie. Well, it's kind of fitting that our first recipient of the Corbin Bunsold Leadership Award is, in fact, Senior Corbin Bunsold. This young man, after missing his sophomore year due to injury, came back and just really took the reins of the leadership role, not only on the team within the practice room and on the mat, but in the classroom as well. In just 3 seasons, he won over 90 matches for us, was a 3-time regional placer, and more importantly, he was a 3-time academic All-American. His leadership, was just, unsurpassed, and we look forward to having him in the room as our grad assistant coach the next 2 years, and so he can continue to help develop future leaders within the program. And our last individual award for the 2019-2020 season is the now titled Drew Casper Most Valuable Wrestler Award. And I think it's only fitting that we have co-recipients for that award this year. Drew Casper and freshman Ryan Witten. The two of them combined for 69 wins, 21 falls, 10 tech falls, 6 individual tournament titles, 7 new program records, 2 regional titles, and both were named All-Americans this past season. One is finishing up just an absolutely brilliant career as an Otterbein University wrestler in Drew Casper, and the other is starting what we know is going to be a brilliant overall career in a Cardinal singlet in Ryan Witten. So a very special congratulations to these two young men who were just absolute workhorses on the wrestling mat all season, and showed up when the lights were brightest and competed at the very highest level. Most valuable wrestlers, freshman Ryan Witten and senior Drew Casper. And that puts a wrap on the 2019-2020 Otterbein University Cardinal wrestling season. It's a season that's going to be remembered for a number of reasons. I hope the main reason it's remembered is not because of the unfortunate way that the season ended or, the events that have taken place since in regards to the COVID situation. I hope that it's remembered for a remarkable group of young men and everything that they were able to accomplish, and especially to this senior class, which is the class that began the resurrection of the program and helped to take us, to new heights during the last 4 years. At one point this season, we were ranked as high as 13th in the country as a team, which is pretty remarkable for a team only, the 4th year in its existence. It's just a special group to be part of, and I'm very, very fortunate, to be able to coach these young men and to work with the coaches, that are part of the program. And, on a personal note, I would just like to thank my family, for their support and for allowing me to be able to go out and do what I truly love. There is nothing else that I could, picture myself ever wanting to do other than, to go to war with these young men and to help them grow, as individuals. And I just feel very, very blessed to be able to do that. We have a great group of young men coming in as freshmen next year, and we have a great group of young men coming back that are going to have another year of experience under their belts. And we're just going to continue to work on and to improve on the legacy that this group of seniors have left for us. So I wish everybody, well, everybody stay safe, and we're going to be back on the mat soon. We're going to be back getting after it, and we're going to continue to watch the amazing things that our graduating seniors go out and do in life. Everyone take care.